Hi.
Good morning.
Okay, today we're going to start off with our month of floral illustration. And just using this topic um, to hone our skills in all the mediums. We will be starting off with pencil sketching, because pencil sketching is the most vital skill that you need to learn. Everything else you will learn very easily. But if your pencil sketching suffers, then it's like the foundation that doesn't work. And then everything else, just no matter what amount of makeup you put on it, it will not look solid. That's all. So I want to start off with, as usual, a few rules about pencil sketching, and this might require you to re-evaluate or evaluate your own style of pencil. There are some not, I would say, different habits when we use pencil, because we start using pencil at a very young age and we use it for writing, but for drawing we need to use it very differently. So you might have to change a few habits as far as pencil sketching is concerned. So I'll go over that. If you happen to have a set of color pencils, today might be a good time to bring those out as well. Even if they're watercolor pencils, we can just use the color pencil part of it. And if they are watercolor, we can also try hydrating the colors and then working with that. So if you need a minute to go get the pencils, I'll send some more pictures on the group.
Aditi, I love these white flowers. I don't know the name. What's the name?
I think they're just the daisy.
Oh,
They're like
I
white
like that.
flowers in
Hmm.
the temperate zone.
Yeah, I like that they're in a group, at least with the image. There's lights and shadows.
They're actually one of my favorite flowers also. They grow wild, but their aesthetic is so pretty. They look very nice.
Yeah, in a group, they look amazing.
Hmm.
It makes it less intimidating for me than like taking one single blown up rose and like getting all the details right.
That's an interesting perspective. I never thought of it that way.
I'm just lazy. So I'm like, oh no, not all.
Okay. Um, okay, so I just want you to pick any one flower of your liking and try to draw it. Just give it 5 minutes. Don't use an eraser, because I want us to then evaluate the drawing practices. So even if you're unhappy with the lines and all, this is just rough work. This is just to set the a certain base level from where we can take it to in another direction.
Hi, Aditi. Good morning.
Hi, Amulya.
How was your birthday?
Oh, very nice.
How did you celebrate the milestone?
Um, Nothing special. The usual. I had my classes in the morning and the afternoon, and then as usual, like every Saturday, I relaxed. And then my daughter came over and she did up the house. So I guess
Oh,
she
nice.
made it special. And then we had some friends over for dinner. That's about it. I think the stipulation this birthday, the milestone was that I am not to cook. I have to sit and relax, try to relax, which is the most difficult thing for me to do, to relax. So I was trying to micromanage. Then at every point I kept saying, okay, now let me just go to the kitchen and do this little thing. So yeah, I celebrated my 50th by trying to relax. So you're out, is it, Amulya? Are you going to be drawing or you're sitting in only?
Yeah, no, I can draw. I'm just sitting in the building
Okay.
downstairs.
Okay, lovely,
Yeah.
lovely. Okay, so
Nice.
I've sent a bunch of pictures, and what I've asked everyone to do is just take 5 minutes to try drawing one of those flowers. And then, so I just want to set a baseline for your own personal practices with pencil sketching. And then I will demonstrate, and then you would probably need to make some observations and adjustments for yourself. And then we will take on another subject.
Okay. Aditi, I sent those birds on the
Yeah.
group. Can you take a look and tell me, I mean, give me suggestions?
Yeah. So the birds are looking very nice. The
But
border,
I'm not able to get the transparency that I'm looking for. Like, the feathers, they look very delicate, right? I'm not able to get that effect.
maybe what you should try to attempt is the washes. So the transition from light to dark color is looking a little too stark in all of them, like the white at the throat or the breast area down to the colored feathers. Usually you would have them lighter. So the transition starts off lighter. So the first layer that you make, that becomes the transition layer. And if you want to add any more details to it, then you go in sporadically, not in the exact same area. When you do that, then obviously some areas are left unpainted in the second layer or third layer. And then automatically you get that depth. Some feathers land up looking more transparent, and some start looking more opaque just because of the overlaying of color. So a few, can you send me the reference image of these, and then I'll just comment maybe later after class. If you wait for 10 minutes, I can demonstrate also. Okay. All right. Can we review? Can we can we see what you all have made? Okay. Janita has made a daisy. Very nice. And Delia as well. Okay. Very nice.
Semi before the class started.
Is that in pen?
Yeah, my
Okay.
turn.
Why don't you add that to our reference images on the group? Also, Amulya, your question was about drawing lines. I think for both you can draw the line, the border, but this I have seen botanical illustrations with even crisper borders. So in this case, if you make a border on that exact ruled line, that might look better. So here you don't make it by hand, as in without, don't make it freehand. And also consider making it in gold, maybe.
Right. Okay.
That might look nice.
Okay.
Aditi, I did some loose watercolor birds, in fact, after all years. I got inspiration. So, do you mind if
Ah.
I share that?
No, please share it on the group. I'd love to see.
It's very spontaneous.
Okay. Is this what, is this on October this year? No, don't
Yeah, it's for
know.
bird October.
Ah, okay, okay.
Yeah, I just sent them.
Okay, let's see. Oh, very nice. These are lovely. Very nice. So
Yeah, beautiful.
here you can
Second.
just develop it and make it more detailed. This is, they're very good even as finished illustrations. This becomes in itself a style. So this doesn't need anything more than what you've done. And then another style would be where you do part of what you've done, except for the dark colors, and build in more detail in the feathers or in some textural element before you go into the or the darker colors. But in themselves, they're quite beautiful. Very
Yeah, for
nice.
the kingfisher, I just didn't know how to go about doing the greens. I mean, I was so tempted, but then, I just wanted a very free flow. I don't know. I mean, I should have done a little bit of green. I don't know.
No, why do you say that? Why would you want some green?
Somehow I felt that it's like, not cohesive enough. I don't know what it is. The actual picture had like green background on it, but maybe looking at that picture, I felt it was insufficient. And after I just did the bird, I didn't want to mess it up more.
Well, one thing is that if you're going to make a background and it's going to be light, make it beforehand. Don't make it after painting the bird, especially things like birds, flowers, where their edges matter. They're not amorphous. There, if you make a background afterwards, then you're so cautious that you don't want to enter into that painted space that you'll end up leaving an unnecessary highlight.
Okay.
So, yeah, so always make the background first. Decide on the background before you paint the bird. And you don't always need a background, and even a green wouldn't be bad at all. But with green also, with any background, you can mix it. You can have 2, 3 shades mixed so that it doesn't look like one flat imposing green. It can create the depth that you would want in a grassland area where you might see, or a wetland area where you might see a kingfisher.
So one thing I've realized after doing, a couple of birds was as long as you can nail down on the face of it, you're set. I mean, rest of it will just flow through it, whatever you put it in.
That is true. That is very true. The face, and in the face, the eyes. If you manage
Eyes.
that, everything
It's-
else is fine.
Everything else will fall.
All right. So I'm going to start with illustrating one flower, and I can take on, what flowers do we have here?
Daisy, 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 daisy.
Daisy, you're not very subtle. Okay, we'll take on the daisies. So before I begin, I just want to share with you about pencil sketching, what you need to watch out for. One is the grip. So how close or how far you hold the pencil. Then also the angle with which you hold the pencil. Pressure. So these 3 things are the most important things that you need to observe when you are sketching. And I'm going to show you the contrast between beginners who are using pencil versus people who have sketched for a while, or more advanced artists, how they land up using a pencil. So beginner's pencil hold, the grip is very close, if not here. This is how many kids are drawing. Grown-ups at least come up to this level. The angle is pretty static because this is the angle that we use for writing. And it's the same angle that we use for drawing in the beginning. So mostly our fingers are moving. So if I were to draw the daisies with this grip, this is what happens. We are used to drawing very short lines. So in the beginning, this is how we are comfortable drawing. Now there is a limit to how tall you can make this line. So you'll end up making a bunch of short lines because you're not changing the grip. And these lines are also pretty unpredictable. You can't control these as well. I've gone and drawn the one daisy that is overlapped by three others. Sorry. So your hand is restricted because of all these things. Now, all these three factors are variable. There is a close grip and there is a grip that's far away. Angles are all over the place and pressures are all over the place. That is what we need to practice with pencil sketching. So if I need to draw a flower, I first need to figure out its proportions. I should be able to comfortably draw these proportions by just looking, without having to use any kind of artificial measuring. While I am drawing, I should also be able to shade if I feel like it, because sometimes it's shading. When the space is filled up, you get better references. We'll go over all these later on. I just want to finish this demonstration. And then based on this, I've now changed my grip and the angle of my pencil hold to sideways because I want to draw lines that go upright.
Is that a 2B pencil that you're using?
This is just called a smooth and dark pencil by Camlin for an art company. I don't know why they haven't given its darkness, but I think it is as smooth as a 2B pencil. So these pencils, I think, are sold as just writing pencils for kids. So that's why they don't really write whether it's
I
HB.
just bought them yesterday.
Oh, they're very nice, huh?
Yeah.
Wonderful quality.
My
Yeah.
kid has been told to write dark, so
Oh, it does write very dark.
yeah.
So here's another thing also. When you are drawing, these lines are meant to be in just guidelines. And based on these lines, you will start firming up your illustration. So here, now your pressure will change, your hold will change, and your line quality will also change. So where you drew very firm lines, they were all uniform in darkness. Here your lines become more wispy and they don't have uniform darkness. They can be light or dark. So it's very important to know this and work on this because eventually that is what helps you become consciously become good at pencil sketching. In my experience, I have found that being able to sketch is almost considered like a superpower. Because I did not get any training from any college for either design, at least graphic design, but I did work as a graphic designer in a very prestigious firm in Pune. All I had to do was to go there with my sketchbook, and they said, "All right, we'll hire you. because I was able to recreate what was in my head. So the pencil becomes like almost as if what is that? The needle that of the ECG machine that writes down what your heart is doing. The pencil becomes that kind of a tool. It puts down on paper what you're imagining. But if the contact is loose, then what you're imagining becomes something that you can just about describe, but not as effectively as just drawing it out. So the contact is loose because this skill of pencil sketching is not a basic requirement for the brain. So you have to train it to do three things. It has to observe and observe more keenly than it normally does. Then it has to stop interfering. And stop analyzing. And stop interpreting. So this is what our brain has to do. And as far as our hands, we just have to develop stronger muscles. And all this to make a predictable line. A controlled line. So the true measure of control over a line is, I would say, it would be being able to rescue anything. The reason why many experts are experts because not because they don't goof up, but they can bring back a bad project from the brink of disaster because they are in control of the variables. So when you are shading, hold the pencil really light. You can either shade it in strokes like this, or you can go back and forth and just abrase some of the graphite onto the paper and make it smooth. Either is fine. Then when you have to add details, you can move a little closer on the pencil so that you get more pressure control and also accuracy. As you move closer and closer, you'll notice how your fingers need to do different kinds of work. With larger areas, you're just moving the tip, not the wrist. And it's much easier to control this line, even if you do it slowly. As you come closer, the fingers need to move even more controlled. So here, a lot of times in the beginning, people draw the line really fast. It's like riding the cycle really fast. All Bhagwan Bharose. So that may give you a good looking line, but it's not predictable. You can't repeat your success. And more often than not, you land up making the line look ugly. So rule of thumb is when you're drawing detailing, you come closer. When you're doing a large shadow or shading, move further away. Now, other things that come into play are hold the book when you're drawing. Don't draw with one hand when the other hand is somewhere else. Hold your book, because your left hand or your non-dominant hand will give you support. That is the hand that will anchor you. And when you anchor yourself, you get a much better, freer hand to draw with uh, all kinds of lines, long lines, short lines, without any stress. Not holding the book in the beginning will force your right hand to make a darker line, because it is forcing itself to also hold the paper and to draw at the same time. So you will not have, it will not move at will as it should. The second thing is freely rotate your book. If there is a particular shade you need to make in an area that you can't make the right shape, then move the book temporarily, turn it around so that your hand moves easily. Now I can't shade over here unless I keep my hand above my paper, and then I won't get a proper line. So if I can mark that space, turn the book, I can do this. A lot of artists keep rotating their books and pages to come to seat the book in front of them in a manner such that they have access and control over every line that goes on it, whether it's pencil, pen, everything. All right. So this was just the demonstration. Now, when I am practicing pencil sketching, I rarely erase lines. There's really no point in erasing lines. A subject like this, flowers, fruit, trees, if a few lines are not accurate, it's not the end of the world. It's not as if, and even if it were the case that you try to draw a dahlia and it looks like a daisy, that you've committed a crime, that you have to correct the line. So don't bother. The guidelines that you draw, also keep those. A finished picture, sorry, let me retract that. When you are making a finished picture, only then should you allow yourself to erase. So when pencil shading, remember you can make it smooth or textured. Light, dark. So the qualities of the pencil are limited, but they, in that limitation itself, they can give you a lot of opportunity to observe the subject. Normally, we are mesmerized by color, and we often miscalculate spaces, don't see the right shapes when we are required to sketch and then after that, even paint. But when we remove one requirement and we say, okay, now no painting, we just have to draw this, only then can we focus more on the shape and the form. So in order to arrive at an accurate form, we will use some shapes like circles, triangles, rectangles. So when we make those guidelines, you should maintain those. They are very good to keep alive in a study. Once your picture is completely finished, only then should you allow yourself to evaluate it. And at any point, you can go back and make adjustments to the picture. Our understanding of color and contrast is very, very limited. If we are to compare what we draw to what actually is in a picture, you realize that we work with very light shades, not too many dark shadows at all. So we don't hardly ever get adequate contrast. Now, in the drawing of the daisy, coming back to the structure, all flowers have got different structures, and flowers which have multiple petals can seem easy, but after you've sketched it, they seem either difficult or different. In today's selection, we have the daisy and we have a sunflower. And you will have encountered many such petals like Jainita's dahlia, where you have multiple petals for a flower. So when you're drawing these, what you will look out for are very simple, a few simple basic things. So flowers with multiple petals will have an outside and an inside. So very often this part I think is sometimes called a corona because it looks like a crown. And then you have all the pollen. And between these two shapes, a lot of different flowers can be created. So we have tiny flowers. We have flowers which have a tiny center and very long petals. There is a type of daisy that looks like this also. Also, the proportions are different. Then you have a sunflower where if you have the same size, the center is really large and the petals are tiny. So here you have proportions. Then you have shape of petal. So you can have something like this, like in the daisy. And you will have a few lines perhaps in the middle. Or you will have something like that, which is a sunflower. And again, a few lines in the middle. So in pencil sketching, these are the only two variables that we need to look out for, proportion and shape. So now that you know how the daisy is done, do you want to attempt the sunflower? The picture that I've sent you is not of a circular sunflower. So it will be, well, you can make a circle. Oh, wait, let me just show you what I'm seeing. That will clarify it better. So when I see a circle, this is where I see it. And the internal circle is also pretty much in the center. The best grids are regular grids. So just draw a regular vertical line through the centers of the two concentric circles and a horizontal line. And from here, you start getting a lot of guidance. You will see that in this area, in this area, and this area, more or less, the petals are all coming out from the center, almost perpendicular to the to your pollen head. But here on the left, things are slightly different, where we have some foreshortening happening, where we have just a short petal which is foreshortened so that it looks like it's coming towards us. And there are fewer petals, but they are there, which go outward, but not as uniformly outward and radiating from the center as the other three sides. So this is the manner in which you should learn to observe your topic. Usually an observation where we fall short is that we recognize an object with our brains rather than our eyes. That's how we are trained to do. That's because that's how we have survived. But when you say, okay, fine, let me just put it all in a circle, square, triangle, line, parallel line, figure out distances, then it starts becoming real observation. So look at the distance between the center and the edge of the pollen ring. And if you again objectively see it, it's about the same distance as the petal or the outer edge of the petal. So the radius is pretty much the same throughout. Be the same over here, and for the longer petals even here, and to some extent even across this. I'm going to share this picture on the group so that you have this available, and then you can start drawing. Okay, any questions so far?
Yeah. So the sunflower is actually slightly tilted, right? So
Yeah, that's what I wanted to show
it's
you.
not like, yeah, it's not like a full real circle. It feels slightly elliptical.
It does
Or am I?
No, that's what I'm trying to tell you, that it feels like that.
Oh,
And if you start drawing it like how you feel it should be drawn, often you will make a mistake. But what you're saying is right, it is tilted, it is looking up. So what is making it
okay.
look like it's tilted? It is the central circle, you can also see, is not exactly circular. So it extends a little bit. After we have drawn this, you can make these adjustments. So let me just show you. That's exactly what I wanted to show. So first, I'm just checking that from the center that my distance in for the seed, whatever, the pollen circle and the petals is about the same. Then here, you notice that that central circle comes outward in these two edges, or even this third one, a little more than over here. So this is where our circle starts changing, but it's very slight. But if we start from this point, we will end up making a much flattened flower than it actually is. So here now, if I draw these petals, they will perpetuate that lie or illusion. These are all straight. So beyond this point, I just need to look at the shape that I'm making and replicate that. So you'll notice that the petal over here, the foreshortened petal, so the word is foreshortening if you are unfamiliar with it. Foreshortening. Foreshortening is the name given to the phenomenon that occurs when you make or take a picture in which you're trying to show depth, and certain objects in the process are flattened, so they look disproportionate. Like when you see a person sitting on a chair and you take a picture of them from the front, you notice that from the knees down, the leg is the same length as it should be, but from the hips to the knees, it is, if you measure it with a scale, it looks flat. Yet in your brain, you know that this is because the person is sitting. So that is called foreshortening, and it occurs very frequently. So these petals over here, 1, 2, and 3, are foreshortened. So the difficulty becomes where I try to draw them as petals. But if I just look at their shape, this is what I see. I see a C shape that comes down and becomes an S like that. And then from here, I have another shape that comes and joins it. And then I have a line that goes at about 4 o'clock from here and about 6 o'clock from here, and that's the shape I get. So you don't think about what it looks like till the picture is finished. It has its place in the picture. You just need to see it for what it is and not think about it. This is what I mean. Stop analyzing, stop interpreting, just see it and draw it. In flowers like the sunflower, you will also find so many different types of shapes. When a petal has turned and folded backward, that looks very different and alien. Then certain shapes of petals look very alien. So you feel tempted to correct them. All the places between petals, you will see shapes, not full petals. So don't try to make them as petals. There's a tiny triangle over here. I'm just going to make that tiny triangle. Then right next to this shape is the shape of another petal. And here there's another one that comes out like that. After you finished a few of the petals, start texturing the center of the flower. Don't bother with making very detailed, tiny pollen structures. That'll just, or seeds, that'll drive you mad. Scribble the pencil on paper so that you get part texture, part shade. Wherever needed, then you can also add that texture or make it darker. And usually sunflowers have a very beautiful spiral structure uh, of their seeds. You must have come across this now on those lovely WhatsApp forwards on Fibonacci. So it makes it much easier to texture this also. You just have to go in a curved weave from center towards the outside. And at every point, hold the pencil far away. Make it light first. So this part will make your texture complete, but your flower will look very two-dimensional, again, very flat. And this is where now we will add some interesting flavor to it. Whenever you're trying to show a three-dimensional shaded area, first rule is don't do it everywhere. So I'm going to cut this flower into 4 parts, and I'm going to show you in one part how you can make it look three-dimensional. It's the same flower, starting point of the whole flower is the same. So here you can see that there are pollen, and then the space between the pollen looks dark. So if you have all the time in the world, indulge a little bit in this negative shading between the pollen. But if you don't have all the time in the world, the technique that a lot of people are doing is shading this whole thing black, or sometimes even applying graphite powder, and then using an eraser to erase out areas where you don't need that. I would say that is the quick, fast way of doing it, but maybe not the best for a beginner. There's a reason why beginners should go through all sorts of hardship. Now, I have drawn a very dark circle, but you'll notice that the pollen is not so strictly sticking within the confines of a line. So I need to change my border a little bit and make it less like a circle. Just make it more circular. Keep it circular. I will be painting in the direction of the petals. So if I inadvertently make lines, they would be in the same direction as I want them to be. These petals all have some kind of line, fold, but they're all almost parallel to each other and all from center to tip, not sideways. So shading in a particular direction matters over here. And as always, don't shade on the highlights. But unlike watercolor, we can always go back and lighten them or erase them completely.
Aditi, you mentioned color pencil, right? So I'm wondering, can I start with it, or do you want me to just stick with black?
No, if you finish this flower, go ahead. You can use color pencil, but don't use color pencil on the same flower. because
Oh.
you have to erase parts of the lead. Color pencil otherwise will become very dull if the lead appears. Since this is very dark, it will overpower color pencils.
Mhm.
So maybe take on another flower, draw it lightly with the pencil first, so you don't need to erase much. And then the shading bit, you just go directly with the color pencil.
Okay.
For shading, we also have a tool called a pencil stump, but I don't usually recommend it for just shading practice. Not pencil stump, it's called a paper stump, not pencil stump. How is everyone else doing? Any questions you have? So my question to everyone is, was there a difference in the technique that you sketched your first flower? And did you use any of these change of grip or pressure techniques for the second flower? Let's see, Amulya.
I did the sunflower first, Aditi, and
Uh-huh.
then I worked on the daisy.
Okay.
I would say the sunflower was a bit more challenging for me to do the foreshortened petals.
Huh.
Because you see the distance, yeah, I didn't quite get the distance there.
Okay. Were you able to change your grip and angle and pressure in the second flower a little bit?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Okay, so another thing that I wanted to show you also with pencil sketching is to use, sometimes you can use these lead pencils and use colored lead instead of just regular 2B lead. This is just the regular lead. And here is colored lead. So this is blue and it's fairly soft and creates a very nice line. And this is a nice line to also use as a base for a base drawing when you want to then eventually color in pencil. So say for the orchids, if I want to draw them in color pencil or even just try to draw them in regular pencil, the blue lead gives a very different look to your pictures. I'll show you images of when I've done entire sketches in my sketchbook using this lead.
I found this one artist on Insta who does replicates the entire image in color pencils using just a limited set. Say she just uses like 2 or 3 colors and does the entire image. And
Oh,
very detailed. Yeah, I'll share that on the group.
yeah, that'll be good.
Yeah. Which brand is it? make is this, Aditi? Is this Stedler or Camden again?
The lead,
The
na?
lead.
I can't remember now because I have bought this a long time ago and I have not used it as frequently. So it's still there in the pencil. But I think Stedler will have colored leads.
Okay.
So this line is much firmer and less intense as compared to your color pencil, regular pencil line. So you can, you don't really need to erase it. It can just be overlaid with color pencil. Okay, any questions about regular pencil sketching? And are there any observed differences between what you are used to and if you were to change your technique, what that might do for you? Okay, so moving on to color pencil, it's pretty much the same. Everyone is very comfortable with that. So like with watercolor, you can also put a base tone on color pencils. So if you test out your pencils, you will notice or you will be able to test the correct hue that the pencil gives you. May not always be what you want, but then here's where you can use a bunch of other colors to change the shade and make it what you want it to be. So we don't want to use color pencils like kids have used. We will be able to get a very accurate shade for our use. So here's something that you should do with color pencil. Shade in contour lines. You can always see a direction when you are coloring. If you follow that direction, very often you can easily leave highlights and create depth without doing too much extra work. Don't go in with a very dark shade right in the beginning. Because if the entire page is filled up or the paper is saturated with one color, then giving these overlays, underlays will become that much more difficult.
Aditi, what are these called?
Sorry, what are what called?
these flowers, the ones you're drawing?
This is an orchid. This is a phalaenopsis.
Orchid.
Yeah, that's right.
Phalaenopsis. Thank you.
Okay, my lead pencil, my blue lead pencil is still showing through from here, just so you know. And I think the reason is because I've just not used this lead for a long time. And for some reason, during monsoon, something happens to pencil, to graphite. I don't know whether it's an oxidation or some layer that prevents them from or just becomes hard, the outer layer.
So, what are all the colors you used? You used pink and orange and blue.
There was a red also and a blue.
Red.
And there is this dark pink also I have.
I don't have that.
Unfortunately, this does not have a shade card. So light pink, dark pink is as best as I can tell you. That's so sad. After after having specific shades for watercolor, this just seems very childish. But then I guess this is a kiddie color. So after you're satisfied with your pencil shading, then of course you can make this detailing. There's a beautiful vein structure in many orchids that adds beauty to its petals. But again, distribute before you draw details. So I have first drawn the larger veins, and then if I have the time and the thin line, then I can extend this. But don't do it prematurely. And then when you're making these dots, there are also a lot of speckles on the orchid. Don't do the tuck, 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 tuck dotting. That is just terrible. So just put your pencil down onto that spot like a mosquito and just go over in that area. So you will just go round and round in that area. So you will get a fuzzy dot. If you do a stippling kind of dot, then you'll end up getting an uncontrolled dot. Now this is just basic shading, but in the lower petals you have shadows. So those shadows can be added either before or after. So because it is pencil, anything goes. You must remember that at every point, shadows make a big difference to your picture. So in this case, the shadow is, or the texture is very complex. It is mostly line work. So I am going to shade that section first with the gray. And remember, there's a nice white rim of the petal. So please leave that untouched. And the shading of the petal will also be dark to light in gray. And then you can take the deeper pink color and draw these lines on top of it. So here you're drawing with those lines, not really shading like you might expect. So in the spaces between, you can make some texture to recreate the texture of the orchid itself. Yeah.
Aditi, I don't seem to have that dark pink, so I'm using watercolor pencils.
Okay.
And let me show you the shades I have.
Okay.
Those are the shades I'm using. I tried using this reddish kind of a thing, but it's making it too dull. So I'm just sticking to these two for now.
Yeah, don't use that purple shade. Just go
Oh,
with,
really?
yeah, go with red. Yeah, the pink should be enough.
Okay.
Yeah, the shade is changing too much. This looks like a different orchid altogether.
Right. Okay. So can I go over it with the pink then? Because I
No,
already
no,
did
no.
quite a bit.
No, no. So let this be. This is just an experimental flower anyway, no? So let this one go. The second or the third petal that you're making, just make that in only pink and maybe orange if you want to, because the orange shade gives a nice depth.
Okay.
But don't use that purple
Okay.
at all, or maybe just in the shadows. So with pencil shading, like I told you, you can either shade smooth or texture. So I want to show you how the textured shading also can look. And for that, I will use part of the sunflower since it's already drawn. In 1997, I had painted a wall mural of 9 sunflowers in someone's home. And they had kept that mural for, I think, till 2021. Yeah, until 2 years ago. Recently, that house has been demolished and the new building has come up over there. So, yeah, for 25 years. So, when you're doing textured painting or coloring with with color pencils, this can be very exciting because you're not really trying to make a realistic looking rendition of the subject. So here you can literally use lines, and you're meant to make your illustration very energetic. Now, if you try to do this in pencil, that also looks nice, but it can sometimes look too messy. The best part about color pencils is that they're not all universally as imposing as color like the gray shade of pencil is. Let it go. So the same texture that I made in pencil will look very different when you make it in color pencil. This is when you realize that all those qualities of color come into play. The texture in that I made in pencil versus the texture of the center of the sunflower made in color pencil looks so different, though the lines are pretty much exactly the same. So instead of filling it up wholly, I will allow that texture to stay dominant and, in fact, maybe make it even more pronounced. These illustrations I find really fun to make. You can do this for flowers, for fruit, for even portraiture. Just a nice scratchy look. So this is what I mean. Over here in the darker color, you might see it better. Deliberately making very sharp, short, structured lines. So to some extent, I feel the smooth, textured watercolor illustrations are fairly mundane. You just match the colors and you recreate. And there is, of course, appreciable skill in that also. But sometimes I feel that that is almost like the least one can do. But when you start working with texture, and then you start playing around with uh, just messing around with color over here, like just blending in different kinds of shades, then it starts looking more energetic and also more personal. So this is what a pencil can do. And you're not restricting the ability of the pencil or trying to make the pencil behave like watercolor, right? So that you can really enjoy making pencil art for its texture, for its color, all qualities can be enjoyed. Let me try doing the orchid also in the same style as that. Now, in this case, I'm using the same colors, but I'm translating the a certain texture or a shadow with a different color. So I am translating the deep shadow on the close to the edge of the petal into blue instead of making it a deeper pink. That's it. There's a difference in how I've used the colors over here and how I've used the colors on the right hand side. On the right, I've used exactly the same colors for sometimes the same effect. Like the orange is used to add more vibrance to the pink, and the blue is added to is used to add more shadow, but shadow to the color, not using it to make a shadow like this, a very defined shadow. And then just to be a little crude, I'm also going to make the speckles much more pronounced, because otherwise dainty speckles just won't go with this style of illustration. So this is something I find is what looks delightful in the illustrations made by little kids. They don't have too much control over their motor muscles. So they either land up pressing too much or just making, they can't control the direction of their shading. So sometimes, by complete fluke, they land up making an illustration that looks very impressive. But that here's the thing, they have no control over it, so they may not be able to replicate it. Here we can, to a large extent. So I would say that it definitely helps to spend time in practicing pencil shading thoroughly, getting your shapes right properly before you attempt this. But over time, I've realized that there's no reason to postpone your fun. At least in art, it's fine. You can take a small shortcut, but that shortcut is not going to hamper your growth. It is still going to help you. It's not very easy to make multiple textured surfaces and still make them look aesthetically pleasing to your own eye. So that takes time as well. All right, any questions? Okay. So you have something to do for the whole week? Make half an hour pictures, not more than that. And maybe you could just make them on one sheet of the drawing book. Don't make them too large, make them small, no more than about 3 or 4 inches. And put a date on each of them and see if there is change as the week moves. Now, what I'm looking at, the change needs to be in how well you can control the line. So if you're in the habit of making these broken lines, is that stopping? That must stop. You may get lines that look wrong in the beginning, but the answer is not to then make a broken line. Make a better line next to the one that you're unhappy with. So I'm just looking at control. I'm still not, control of line. That may make each individual line look nice, may not make your flower look accurate. We're not bothered about that right now. All right?
Aditi, can you send a picture, please? The sunflower.
Yeah, I'll send the whole picture now at the end of the class.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Okay, so any of you participating in the recipe book? Okay.
I'm trying, Aditi.
All right. Are you there on the group?
Yes, yes. On Saturday, and no, not on the group, but on Saturday, I attended that extra session that we had.
So then if you're not on the recipe book group, then I'll add you to that.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, I'll add you. I just wanted to make that announcement. So those of you who might be interested, you can join the group. We still have 2 weeks. And if you are anyway interested, but you're still not sure, join the group. You might still feel like submitting something. and you can take a last minute decision also and submit something. Okay, so do let me know if you want me to add you to that conversation. Okay. All right, so next week we will take on watercolor and try to illustrate with pencil and with watercolor. If there's anything specific, any specific flowers that you'd like me to illustrate, just send them ahead of time so I can study them and figure out how I can show them to you. All right?
Aditi, can we do some loose watercolor flowers?
Yeah, we will be doing that next week. Yes, certainly. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll see you next week then.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye bye. No reason.